We should say good afternoon to Peter Strickland, because apparently he listens to the show on occasion and downloads the podcast. So if you're listening, Peter, good afternoon to you. And I love the palette that you create in your films as well. That's the kind of first thing that pulls you into those stories, I always think.
Yes.
Immediately you kind of are, the mood is set.
He probably won't remember this, but 3 years ago, when Barbarian Sound Studio, with Peter's last film, was at the Edinburgh Film Festival, I remember I spotted him in the foyer of the Film House in Edinburgh straight afterwards. And kind of the thing is, he brought that film to Edinburgh expecting nobody to like it and this to be his filmmaking career over. But, he'd at least taken an honest stab at making exactly the kind of film that he wanted to make. And the press screening was, of course, it was, people were split on it, but I was completely... My mind, was blown at this incredible film, and I went up to him and said, fantastic, blah, blah, blah. Chatted away about it for a while and said, so what are you working on next? And he said, well, it's kind of a romantic comedy. And he wouldn't say anything more about it. And that was obviously, in one sense, a totally kind of deceptive answer.
Yeah.
In another sense, very true, because the Duke of Burgandy, what's amazing about this, even though it has this bizarre, dreamlike atmosphere that just kind of envelops you and seduces you and lulls you, what's happening in it, the dynamic in this relationship is completely relatable, and it's surprisingly tender and surprisingly moving and incredibly surprisingly funny as well. You can relate to this even if you are not a lesbian living in this magical European castle. This is your life up on the screen. I certainly felt that anyway. What's clever about it is because the nature of these two women's relationship is such a performance. Each of them are playing different roles.
Yeah.
The film is able to talk more broadly about how in any relationship you are effectively trying to be someone that your partner likes.
Yeah.
And so the scene that we heard before the interview, where Evelyn turns up on the doorstep and Cynthia is instantly very cold and standoffish with her and quite nasty. We see that scene playing out again in full, again directly after that. And again, later in the film, we see part of it again, but from different angles and taking in different things. There's a wonderful, wonderful moment where Caesar's character which we don't see the first time, is kind of running lines in her head about how she should say a certain phrase in order to please Evelyn.
Yeah.
And she's pacing up and down beside this dresser in this kind of incredible, ridiculous outfit, and she's kind of going through line in her head and going waving her fingers around in the air like a scene of rehearsal. And so the film is very cleverly drawing parallels between how you act in a relationship with someone that you're desperate to please, and also in the construction of films and in the construction of these very elaborate fantasies. It even begins with this theme tune where Cara Dana's character is up beside this stream and is cycling to work, and you have these fantastic little freeze frames where Peter Strickland's credited, the actresses are all credited, and then you have a credit as well for a perfume, perfumes by Je suis Gisela, which is this totally fictional. Of course, you can't really smell any perfume. It's not scratch and sniff experience. You just, But the idea is the film is engaging with you on all sensory levels.
Yeah, which is what he does amazingly.
No, he does,
especially the sound, the whole kind of the sonics that he creates in his films, and I think it's heightened in this, particularly with that whole theme of butterflies and moths and that kind of thing. And you have that, it's a constant, and it's almost a reference, I think, to their relationship, the fluttering between who's the submissive and all that kind of thing. In terms of who's in control, when does it stop, when does it start? It's that kind of fluttering.
Yes, no, absolutely. And he uses field recordings from all around the world to kind of create these intensive atmospheres that you can just lose yourself in when these various things are happening. There's also, it's an incredibly cineliterate film, as we talked about. There's Claude Chabrol's in there, Louis Buñuel, Rainer Werner Fassbinder, lots of Valerian Borovitz, lots of very kind of uber hip directors. You don't need to know these filmmakers. If you want a list of films to watch after having seen The Duke of Burgundy and loving it, get in touch with me on Facebook and I will give you 20 to go and see, because it's one of those films that inspires you to go out and seek out the influences. But it doesn't feel like pastiche. He's not just producing this Jess Franco, Lorna the Exorcist style, sexy 1970s Euro thriller.
Because it's not that sexy.
It's starting from, it's kind of, I find, I don't want to give away too much here of my own kind of feelings, but I find it kind of sexy in quite a tense way. It's atmosphere and the way in which there's these very, very careful attention to, as Evelyn is scrubbing the underwear in the sink, there's an attention to the frills on the underwear and the soap bubbles there, and, finding little parallels between this round shape here and this round shape there. Very, very beautifully done. And it's about kind of just letting yourself be lulled and seduced by this atmosphere.